There is since I'm a minister and a bishop and a preacher, there's a scripture that actually speaks to our times. It's almost eerie how close it relates to what we see happening right now.
Yeah, it is.
And that scripture says, it's from Ezekiel, it's an Old Testament, so my Jewish brothers and sisters would understand it from the Hebrew Bible. It says, your priests violate my law and desecrate my holy thing. Your politicians are like wolves, prowling, killing, and rapturously taking whatever they want.
Yep.
But what is worst is your preachers cover up for the politicians by pretending to have received visions and special revelations. They say this is what God the Master has said when God hasn't told them one thing. And because the politicians are acting like wolves and the preachers are covering up for the politicians, extortion is rife, robbery is epidemic, the poor and the needy are abused, and the immigrants are kicked around at will with no access to justice. It's time for some truth-telling.
That's right.
And I want to also ask if there are any Latino brothers and sisters here, if they would come and stand. Stand here with us, especially the children. How you doing, young man? Give me your hand. That's right. That's right. We've got to decide that we are our Latino brothers and sisters. One of the first things that we've got to do in this moment is acknowledge three truths. One is that sadly, this is at least America's third time tearing away families and children.
That's right.
We did it to Native Americans and indigenous people.
That's right.
We did it to slaves.
Yes. Yes.
We did it to Japanese in internment camps.
Yes. Right.
It was wrong then and it's wrong now.
You can grease it.
It was evil then and it's evil now.
You can grease it.
The second truth we must understand is that our immigrant brothers and sisters are not crossing the border crossed them. Only thing that's going to heal America is truth-telling. California was Mexico. New Mexico was Mexico. Texas was Mexico. And what happened is Mexico decided that it would no longer be a slave country. And because Texans particularly wanted to keep their slaves, and because there was going to be a whole argument over the expansion of slavery, America created a war to take those lands. In fact, that's where Henry Thoreau began his civil disobedience. It was over the American-Mexican War. And he refused to pay his taxes because he said it was an unjust war. There's a third truth. And that truth is that many of the policies, military policies, embraced during the Reagan years and other years destabilized the countries in Central America. That causes and has caused many of the problems we have today. Our politicians, Ezekiel said, are acting like wolves. Our preachers covering up for the politicians, and because of that, The poor and needy have no help, and the immigrant finds no justice. We also must know that in the Human Rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 14, that everybody has a right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. The 1967 Convention on Refugees outlines the basic rights of refugees fleeing their countries and seeking refuge because of the fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion. And every country that signs the treaty is required to apply the provisions of the convention to refugees without discrimination as of race, religion, or country. In other words, you can't treat people coming from, say, Canada for asylum one way and treat people from the southern border another way.
That's right. Preach it. Preach it. You got it, brother.
And then the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, U.S. law says that any alien, I don't like that word, but that's theirs, any alien who is physically present in the United States or who arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated point of arrival, irrespective of such alien status, may apply for asylum. So the law is clear that the U.S. law allows anyone from anywhere without any documents who gets into the United States border or into any other country to apply for asylum. We've wrestled with this a long time. I don't know if you know that even as far back as the 1700s, there were certain people that were looked down on, looked down on as different. In fact, in 1751, Benjamin Franklin asked, why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of Anglifying us? In other words, Mr. Trump might want to be careful because there was a time when Germans were not imagined as a part of the whiteness he so thinks he enjoys today. Finally, there is this amendment that was put in the Constitution, and it was put in the Constitution 2 years after the end of slavery, 1868. It is the salvation of the United States Constitution. It is the most important, I believe, of the Constitution, second only to the First Amendment. It is that amendment that says every person has, not citizen, every person has the right to equal protection under law. And so, when you look at what's happening at the border, 2,669 children in detention camps today, nearly a third have been there illegally for over 72-hour limit. This is not an outside source. This is the Inspector General of the government. There are children under the age of 7 who've been held in cages for over 2 weeks. Single men and women are being held in standing room only cages, some for over a week. Most had not had a shower and were wearing the same clothes they came in with, even those who had been there for up to a month. Children have been fed nothing but bologna sandwich for days on end. 1,000 children per year who have been reported sexually assaulted while being detained at the border. This is the government's report on itself. 25 people have died in ICE custody since Trump took office, including a 30-year-old Honduran young man. The two most profitable private companies contracted to manage detained immigrants include the GEO Group and the Core Civic Group, previously known as Corrections Corporation of America. The lobbying arm of GEO Group spent $1.56 million on lobbying in 2018. It also contributed $275,000 to the pro-Trump super PAC Rebuilding America. The Core Civic followed closely by shoveling out $1.23 million in 2018 and giving $378,000 in contributions. 93% went to Republican candidates. Now I must tell you, all of this problem didn't start when Trump came in office. Democrats should have done better. And if Democrats ever get control of the House and the Senate, they better do the right thing this time and fix our broken immigration laws. And stop playing with the lives of people. But when you look at all of these human rights laws and the convention, and when you look at the 14th Amendment, and when you look at the great scriptures of our Bible, this is the truth we must say to America. The asylum seekers and the refugees appearing at our southern border, they are not the lawbreakers. The president is the lawbreaker. The Congress, no, there's something else we're going to do with him. The Congress people, like Congressman Meadows, who agrees with him and enables him, they are the lawbreakers. The preachers that endorse this and don't say anything are the lawbreakers. The officers that enforce these illegal laws and just say, I'm doing it because it's my job, they are the lawbreakers. And if we don't speak up and stand up, we too are lawbreakers.
That's right.
The lawbreakers
That's right.
are those who are treating immigrants seeking asylum worse than we treat prisoners of war. The lawbreakers are those allowing people to die. The lawbreakers are those separating and losing children.
Disgusting.
The lawbreakers are those making women and children drink from toilets. The lawbreakers are those who would dare plan raids any time of the week would be immoral, but to plan them for Sunday is sacrilege. And finally, this truth we must know. The truth is, immigrants contribute to job creation. Immigrants help build businesses and employ. Undocumented immigrants do pay taxes. 11 billion in state and local taxes on an average. Immigrants are helping to sustain the Social Security Trust Fund. In 2010, undocumented individuals paid $13 billion into retirement accounts and only received $1 billion in turn. In other words, the Social Security Trust Fund could not be solvent without the contribution of immigrants. Immigrants reform would reduce the deficit. Immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than native-born Americans. Stop lying on our brothers and sisters. And it's amazing to me that we want to grab, lock up, throw away immigrants, but we don't want to lock up the big business farmers that hire them and use them for cheap labor in the first place. And for our critics, stop saying we want open borders. We want just borders and fair borders and humane borders and loving borders. We still believe what that woman says in the harbor. Bring me your tired, your poor, and your other masses. And so as we engage with people all over the country for this vigil tonight, what else must we do? What is the hope? Well, the first hope is telling the truth. Truth telling in a season of lies is a prophetic activity. Truth telling in a season of lies is radical. Truth telling in a season of lies is liberating. We must tell the truth. But the next hope is we must raise our voices loud. We cannot go quietly away. We cannot let this happen. We must raise our voice loudly. Secondly, we must volunteer our bodies. If it means telling immigrants, come to our churches, and in order for them to get to you, they got to come through us, we must volunteer our bodies. That is why repairers of the breach and others, we are now planning to go to the border with clergy. And we're saying to congresspersons, come, regardless of party, if you've got a conscience, come go to the border with us, because we're determined on the 29th of this month to have Moral Monday at the border to begin the challenge. But not only must we volunteer our bodies at the border, we are now in deliberations about volunteering our bodies and having a constant stream of protests in the office of Senator McConnell and say to him, if the president won't do right, then you ought to join with Nancy Pelosi and make him do right. It's time for our congresspeople to stand up regardless of your race, your creed, your color, or your party. Not only must we raise our voices loud, not only must we volunteer our bodies, we must register our votes at the ballot box. We must stop believing that these southern states are red states.
That's right.
These southern states are not red states, they're unorganized, they're divided states. Years have been spent dividing black people and white people and brown people. Well, it's time to say to hell with your division. We're coming together. We must engage at the ballot box. And somebody said to me today, it's bad. It is bad. But there have been some bad times before in history.
That's right.
One of them was in the 1850s. The Dred Scott decision was passed. And the Dred Scott decision said that a black man had no rights that a white man had to abide by. And everybody told Frederick Douglass it was over. The abolition movement was over. There's nothing else you could do. Frederick Douglass, around about this time, he went to a place, he did a speech. He said, I know this ruling is monstrous. I know this ruling is ugly. But sometimes you have to look at history that sometimes evil takes a necessary step to the ultimate falling down and breaking apart of that evil. Sometimes evil goes too far. My Bible says pride cometh before the fall.
That's right.
And so Frederick Douglass said, what I know is what they have done, it is monstrous. But every attempt to stop the abolition movement has only emboldened our resistance. I wish you would tell somebody that what they are doing now is not turning me off, it's turning me on. That every time they go after our immigrant brothers and sisters, it will embolden our resistance. And we're going to hook up with everybody else whose resistance ought to be emboldened. When they go after health care, it ought to embolden our resistance. When they block living wages, we ought to embolden our resistance. When they go after voting rights, embolden our resistance. When they go after women, it ought to embolden our resistance. When they go after the gay community, it ought to embolden our resistance. And if all of us resist, and if all of us fight, we can turn this thing around. So we who believe in freedom, we cannot rest. Instead, we must make contemporary what Langston Hughes said in 1935. I am the poor white fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope that I seek. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in the ancient endless chain of profit and power and gain and grab and land, of grab of gold, of grab of ways of satisfying needs, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. And yet, America has never been America to me, and yet I say it plain, America will be. I will fight to make America what it must be. And we need to know from Asheville, will you fight? We will make America again. We will make freedom real. We will make independence real. We will make justice real. We will make love real. We will make the beloved community real. And we will do it together. Red and yellow and black and white and brown and gay and straight and young and old and Jewish and Christian and Muslim and Hindu and even my brothers and sisters who do not have a particular faith, but you believe in the moral art of the universe. It is time. It is time for us to say, America may have not been America, but we swear this oath that America will be. Take your hands off of our immigrant brothers and sisters.